Friends. Let's talk about them. Hey everyone, it's Mercedes. I am back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about a really hot topic. I feel like I get this question all the time, whether I'm doing Instagram stories, whether it's just through my DMs, or even just people who are like talking to me at open houses and things like that. People always ask, how do I make friends? I'm so nervous about making friends. Even for the most extroverted of us, it's so nerve-wracking to come into a new environment and try to make friends. So I'm going to give you my 5 tips for making friends at university, as well as a couple of tips for maintaining those friendships once you have them. Mostly what it comes down to is just putting yourself out there and realizing that every single person in university feels the same way that you do when it comes to making friends. My very first tip is making friends in residence. So whether you live in residence or whether you're commuting, it's super important to meet friends in first year who are living on res. Now, I say this for a couple of different reasons. The main one is that people love to hang out at res, whether it's after class or on the weekends, if someone's having a party, if someone just wants to chill and hang out. People love to be in their own spaces and they love to be at home. Of course, it's nice to go out, but honestly, a lot of us don't have the luxury of being able to go to a restaurant every single weekend. So residence is really the place to be. As long as you have your student ID or some other form of government identification, you can get into residence with one of your friends. And so that will also connect you to just a much bigger social circle than you can even imagine. Okay, my second tip, I guess this could have been the first tip, but attend Frosh events. If you are in the city, I know that it can be difficult, especially if you're a commuter, to want to go downtown every single day for a week before school to go and sort of feel awkward with a bunch of other people in a field. But trust me, this is where you will meet your friends, and that is the main goal of Frosh, to get you connected to not only the campus, not only making you feel comfortable within the school, but also to help you meet people. And I know it's super nerve-wracking, especially if you're on your own, but I always say the first day of Frosh, go out there, just put yourself out there, try to make one friend so that for the rest of Frosh week, you'll have someone, or hopefully even a big group to hang out with. Okay, number 3, I know I might sound like a broken record. I feel like I talk about this all the time on Instagram and over DMs, but join a club. Ryerson has a ridiculous amount of clubs. If singing and music is your thing, we have Ryerson Musical Theater Company, which produces a full-scale musical every single year. We have Rynamics, which is the a cappella group. We have musicians at Ryerson, Ryerson vocalists. So that's just music. I know a lot about it because that's my people, that's what I like to do. But there's so much to do. There's engineering clubs, there are science clubs, there are anime clubs and environmental clubs and politics clubs. Anything you can possibly imagine, it exists. There is a list online, which I will hopefully put up somewhere here on this screen, which can show you the actual existing list of clubs, as well as a way to contact them. Most of these clubs exist on Instagram. We live in a world where everything is on Instagram, so don't be afraid to just go for a search, see what you're interested in, type in some keywords, and see what clubs pop up, because chances are there will be a club out there for you. It may sound like common sense, but this is where you are going to meet the people who you connect with the most. Of course, if you guys have the same hobbies and activities and likes and dislikes, it's going to be a lot easier to connect with these people and make friends. Not just that, but I do find that because you're joining clubs usually a little later into the semester, like 1 or 2 months in, you already have your own, hopefully, existing friend group. They already have their own existing friend groups, and sometimes those worlds can collide, and that is the best thing ever, when you meet someone that you connect with and then they introduce you to a bunch of new people. It honestly just feels great to walk around campus and see someone that you recognize, even if you guys aren't really close friends, and just to say hey, it makes you feel like you exist. Sometimes just seeing a familiar face can make you remember that you're not alone, and that we're actually a lot more connected than we seem. Okay, number 4. Reach out to people in your program. When you're talking to people in your program, you're really likely to meet people who think and who have the same goals as you do. This is something that I found really difficult in high school. I felt like I didn't connect with a lot of people in that way. I felt like we were just from completely different worlds. But when you're coming into university, I couldn't believe how many people were really like me in journalism. And there's something amazing about being able to commiserate with people who really, really understand you just fundamentally. I think an important thing to remember is that in coming to university, you've already taken the hardest step. You've already put yourself in a position of vulnerability. And it's so important to remember that most people are like that. 95% of us just walked into this hoping that it would work out, hoping that something was gonna stick. Once you realize that, and once you meet people and hear their stories, you'll understand, wow, like, they're exactly like me. Okay, so now I'm gonna move on to a couple of tips for being receptive to new people in university. It's such an anxiety and a fear for so many of us, and it's so normal. So the number one thing for me when it comes to being approachable and being receptive to new people is fake it until you make it. I was literally the most anxious person walking into every single one of those classes, but I walked in flipping my hair, you know, looking around, staying off my phone, keeping my hands out of my pockets, just making all of these little psychological tricks to make people think that I was more approachable, that I was more confident, and that I was ready to make friends. Meanwhile, on the inside, I was literally like, the second thing is stay humble. I feel immediately turned off by someone when they go on and on and on about their accomplishments. I feel like sometimes it's a defense that we put up to make ourselves feel better and make ourselves feel more accepted and more confident, but really staying humble and recognizing that every single person has had their faults and their defeats as well as their triumphs is super important. And I feel like people connect more over the things that we struggle with as opposed to the things that we do amazing at. And there will be a time and a place to flaunt your successes and tell your friends all about everything that you've done in high school and in your past life. But you know, when you're first meeting people, that's usually not the way to go. I feel like I did that a lot in high school just as a defense mechanism. And I feel like it turned a lot of people off from me because they thought that I was stuck up, that I was egotistic, but at the end of the day, I was actually just really insecure. So check your ego, leave it at the door, and just be humble. Okay, number 3, this is a total psychological trick, but ask people about their lives. People love to talk about themselves. Think about when someone asks you a question, they ask, what pet do you have? And you just want to go on and on and on about your dog and all the cute things that he does. Meanwhile, that person probably doesn't really care, but they have created a bond with you and you suddenly feel so much more comfortable talking to them about things. So flip it around. Instead of waiting to be asked a question by someone or waiting to be approached by someone, go and be that person. Ask questions. That is one thing I feel like I've learned from journalism school, is that I was really afraid that people weren't going to want to talk to me and that people would be super guarded, but people actually love talking about their lives and love talking about themselves. And you never realize how much you really connect with someone until they tell you like a tidbit about their life, an anecdote, and then you're like, oh my god, same, I went to that high school too, or I also have a golden lab, you know? Like sometimes those are the things that you connect with people most on, but those details aren't things that you would know unless you're actually willing to listen to people. Just as a final note, before I finally close this off, don't put too much pressure on yourself. You will make friends, whether it's your best friends for life or whether it's just people to spend the days with, whether that's from a club, whether that's from Frosh, whether that's in your residence, whether that's nearby to where you live, whether that's in your program, whether that's in one of your elective classes, even if it's just someone you see at the SLC and you randomly connect, someone in a Starbucks line, you are going to make friends, so do not worry. It will happen for you at the right time. Stay sweet, and I'll see you in the next video.